a fierce and unprecedented campaign in Israel against Egypt. Wow. Okay, that exact quote is really what's driving our explainer today. We are looking at this totally sudden, incredibly intense spike in media rhetoric between these two historic neighbors. It's loud, it's sudden, and is absolutely dominating the headlines right now. But to understand what's really going on here, we need to look past the noise and examine the data.
Welcome to the explainer. Today, we're unpacking what we call the Sinai Rhetoric. We're going to look way past those flashy daily news alerts to understand the massive, truly tectonic geopolitical shifts currently happening in the Middle East. It's a fascinating recalibration of power, and we're going to break it all down for you clearly. So, here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the media trigger, move into sovereignty in Sinai, touch on the domestic factor, zoom out for the macro shift, and wrap up with aligning strategic interests. Let's dive right in.
Okay, part 1. The media trigger. Let's unpack this Israeli campaign.
Right now, the accusations flying around the Israeli press are incredibly specific. They're heavily pushing claims that Egypt is outright violating their long-standing peace treaty. They point to these military drills happening, get this, just 100 meters from the international border. Plus, there are all these widespread reports claiming Egypt is building up massive military infrastructure, complete with underground shelters. And the framing here is absolutely crucial. They aren't just calling these routine maneuvers, they're presenting them to the public as a direct, rapidly mounting security threat.
And populist voices are really fanning the flames here. For instance, Israeli journalist Adi Cohen recently put out claims that Egypt is indirectly supporting Iran. But here's the catch. These are massive geopolitical claims, but they're being thrown out there without any concrete evidence to back them up. Honestly, the sheer intensity of this campaign seems pretty clearly designed to just grab public attention and seriously heighten domestic alarm.
Moving on to part 2, sovereignty in Sinai. Let's look at the actual reality on the ground. The really important point here is the massive contrast in perspective. We are literally looking at the exact same physical actions, but they're being viewed through two entirely different lenses. On one hand, the Israeli media sees treaty violations and the buildup of a threatening military force. But flip the coin, and the Egyptian perspective is totally different. To them, this is simply the exercise of their national sovereignty. From their point of view, if you want to secure the region, you have to develop it. So what's being built is seen as vital civilian infrastructure designed to protect and stabilize their own territory.
And we aren't just talking about a few small buildings. Egypt has launched absolute mega projects in the Sinai Peninsula. I mean, development's so massive, they're actually reshaping the geography of the region. We're talking expansive new civilian ports, high-capacity modern railway systems, and sprawling new bridges. Egyptian officials and analysts are super clear on this. They view these enormous projects as vital national development. The logic is pretty straightforward, right? Developing the Sinai economically and physically is, in their eyes, the absolute best way to secure it.
Now, the number 6 is really the key here. Why? Because it represents 6 massive new tunnels running directly underneath the Suez Canal. From a logistical standpoint, these tunnels are a total game changer. They're designed to permanently link the Sinai Peninsula with the rest of the Nile Delta, effectively making them one unified, integrated piece of land. It's a huge geographic shift that completely transforms how goods, people, and even security forces move around inside Egypt's sovereign borders. Now, to make sure we're looking at a fully balanced picture of all this diplomatic friction, we've got to talk about the counterclaims. Pushing back against this media campaign, Egyptian analysts point out that Israel itself has actually violated the security annex of their peace treaty. They cite specific instances where forces brought heavy weapons into designated buffer zones right across the border. So, with accusations of treaty violations flying in both directions, this whole geopolitical situation gets incredibly complex, very fast.
Which brings us to part 3. The domestic factor.
Let's talk about political motivations. As we all know, domestic politics always play a massive role in foreign rhetoric. Analysts point out that this fierce media campaign is actually heavily influenced by internal drivers over in Israel. Look, they have ongoing election campaigning right now, and there's a really clear political strategy at play to mobilize voters. Historically speaking, one of the absolutely most effective ways to rally a voter base is by pushing that narrative of being, surrounded by enemies. So the timing and the sheer intensity of these border anxieties, they just happen to map perfectly onto that need to drum up domestic political support.
All right, let's zoom out for part 4, the macro shift. We're talking about a new regional alliance.
So analysts are starting to point towards this emerging Sunni axis. Basically, it's a growing strategic and military coordination between 3 major regional powers, Egypt, Turkey, and Pakistan. And this alignment is very specifically designed to counter any single nation's regional hegemony. Obviously, Israel is watching these developments with deep anxiety, especially considering the recent joint military drills between these massive militaries. For a long time, the historical separation between nations like Egypt and Turkey was a sort of comfort. Now, their new unity is a very serious complication.
Think about it. When you bring together the largest, most formidable militaries in the region for joint drills, you're sending a crystal clear message. The illusion of absolute, unchallenged military superiority in the Middle East is officially shattered. It's a direct challenge to the whole narrative that the region can just be unilaterally controlled or dominated by any one state. Make no mistake, there are still major powers here that can coordinate, push back, and really hold their ground. And finally, Part 5. Aligning strategic interests. Let's see how the goals line up.
So we basically have three countries, each with highly specific, distinct national interests, but they're all converging into one unified strategy. Let's break it down. Egypt's primary goal is protecting its direct national security in Sinai and managing the extension of that security near the Palestinian territories. Then you have Turkey, which is intensely focused on maintaining its influence in Syria and pushing back against any regional incursions there. And meanwhile, Pakistan is strategically positioning itself on this grand chessboard as a formidable, highly reliable regional ally amidst all these broader conflicts.
But here's the thing. Despite all those different geographic priorities, there is a powerful, unifying glue holding this entire alliance together. Their shared core objective is simply this: preventing a shift in the balance of power that favors unilateral regional dominance. Literally none of these three powers wants to see one single state hold all the cards in the Middle East. They're uniting to make absolutely sure they maintain a multipolar region where their individual sovereign interests stay protected.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, it's that we aren't just looking at some fleeting news cycle about border drills. The Middle East is undergoing deep, permanent structural transformations right now. And right at the center of all this, Egypt is acting as a really decisive anchor, proving it absolutely remains a heavy hitter capable of recalibrating regional power dynamics to protect its vital interests.
Which leaves us with one incredibly crucial thought to ponder. As these major powers coordinate their militaries and align their massive strategic interests, how will this emerging alliance reshape the ultimate balance of power in the Middle East? It's a giant puzzle, and it's a question that's going to define the geopolitics of the region for decades to come. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the headlines, keep analyzing the structures, and I'll see you next time.